So today we've got a very special guest, an ex-Googler, a cybersecurity expert, and a Web3 veteran, Raullen from IoTex. Raullen from IoTex, how's it going? Welcome to studio. The virtual
thanks
studio.
for having me. I'm doing very well. How about you?
Doing good, thanks. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your interest is in this space.
Of course. My name is Raullen Chai. I'm the CEO and co-founder of IoTex. My background is tech. So I'm PhD in cryptography from University of Waterloo. I spent almost 5 years in Google leading team for infrastructure and security. And I spent 1 more year in Uber, basically leading the team for cryptography and privacy. Then started IoTex back in 2017.
Okay, so a fellow cybersecurity guy and a man after my own heart. And what it is, or rather, what was it that led you to pursue this the idea of IoTex? What is the driver?
Yeah, my story is pretty simple because my major is cryptography when I'm doing my PhD, right? So at that time, Bitcoin white paper just came out around 2009, 2008-ish, right? That's where me and a bunch of folks around me, we actually dive into Bitcoin white paper pretty deep because we don't think like a thing as good as Bitcoin could be something true. So that's why we're trying to find the flaw, but we cannot. That's where I got into, blockchain Bitcoin really early. When I graduated around 2012-ish, there's no such a Web3 industry, right? Coinbase is still like a 3-people company at that time. A very ugly website setting up just at that time. So that's why I joined Google, stayed there 5 years. But on the side, I'm always keep my eye on how this industry kind of evolves, right? So starting from, from Ethereum, then there are a lot of like a new project gets launched, the ICO hype. Then eventually that come to the year of 2016. At that time, so there was like a very big wish from people about how the IoT devices, which is very universal to the world, to the real world, can be used and controlled and contribute some sort of value to the blockchain in a way. So that's kind of like a very high level idea of IoTex, which has been formed in 2016. Then 2017, me and 2 other co-founders, we actually setting up IoTex.
Cool. So it's always interesting whenever I meet someone that was inspired by the Bitcoin white paper, because the notion always seems to be the same, right? There's a sort of there's a feeling of enchantment about like after reading that document that like sparks a certain energy in people. Right, so I'm happy to see that was the case with you. So you went on and you created IoTex, and one thing we know is that Bitcoin was never meant for IoT devices. I think that's fair to say.
No, it's not. Even like Ethereum and all the layer 1 blockchains, if you look at the market right now, so there are kind of like Solana, Polygon, Ethereum, of course, like the biggest one, right? Bitcoin as well. But not an EVM chain, has no smart contract. And there's some new layer 2s like Arbitrum, ZK Sync, Optimism. Yeah, none of them will be designed, are not designed for the IoT device, because we're talking about have a huge volume of data coming from the real world at almost every moment, right? So that's why it spent like also us few years try to figure out the thesis for how IoT and blockchain can work together. Yeah, I'm happy to dive down if you want me to.
Yes, absolutely. So like I'm assuming that you're currently working with like some kind of DAG, right? Is that the case, or is it somewhat different?
No, it's different. So it's interesting you mentioned about the DAG. I think the DAG is the first wave of how IoT and blockchain can be combined together. At that time, people were thinking actually, how about we design a blockchain that has a very kind of fundamentally different underlying data structure as Ethereum, right? So which is called DAG, which is like it's a graph basically. So which will have a very fast or like a very high throughput, very low kind of gas price. And let's do this layer 1. So that's kind of like a project like IOTA was started around this direction, right? But like the problem for DAG is you cannot do any smart contract on top of this chain. At least it's very hard, which stops you to have like a lot of assets, which is binding to like the IoT devices or to the real world in a way on this chain, right? So that's basically make this chain valueless. So like the approach actually we are taking, of course, after like a several attempt, a vertical experiment, a lot of exploration, a lot of years, is so you should still have like kind of traditional layer one as EVM POS type of chain, which is IoTeX layer one we do have right now, but you should have like a middleware. It's trying to be kind of like the using a tech term is like a Kafka in a way, basically trying to funnel in all the data from the devices all the time in real time, then doing some sort of like a validation computation on top of any like a small piece of data which can be computed based on this huge volume of data should be emitted to like the layer one blockchain for some sort of like a token incentives or trigger some smart contract behaviors, right? So that's kind of like a thesis we have right now. So that's why on top of IoTeX layer one, we're doing like a decentralized this kind of middleware protocol. It's called WebStream.
Okay, so we're talking about a sort of like a blockchain agnostic platform here.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds like a hell of an idea. But I have a habit of sort of being attracted more by the tech first. But let's take a step away from the tech and let's talk about the value and the use case here. So let's say I am a potential customer of IoTeX. What do I do and how do you help me?
Yes. So we have a lot of clients, by the way. So our clients are people who want to actually start like an IoT blockchain project. So IoT and blockchain, so they have a new name. It's called DePIN, given, this many years of involvement, right? Something called DEPIN, decentralized physical infra networks, right? So you must have heard about Helium. Helium is a very good DePIN project, all right? It has like hardware which provides wireless connectivity to nearby devices. At the same time, they have a token to incentivize people to deploy these devices, provide utility, while the utility, if anyone's using the network, will be, kind of value accrue back to the token. So that's kind of like a flywheel. And there's a lot of DePIN projects they're working on. So like our value prop is trying to provide like the infrastructure for those DePIN projects to grow. Because DePIN is a very important sector. It actually connects like a real world economy and the crypto space. The crypto space, if you look at crypto space, is just under $1 trillion right now. But like a real world economy is $500 trillion, right? It involves everybody, where you live, where you stay, what you eat, what you drive, where you go, who you meet. It's basically like your daily life. So this is $500 trillion kind of big market. So DePIN, like this physical infra network, could be your car, could be your smart house, could be your home camera, could be your microphone, computer, cell phone, anything. That's kind of like a bridge, connecting like the crypto space and the real world economy. So that's why we're super bullish on DePIN.
Yeah, I mean, no, like you're definitely targeting like one of the most prominent industries, I'd say, which is set to explode in Web3. And one of the main reasons why it hasn't is because of the TPS limitation on traditional chains, right? Because like you very well said earlier, if you've got, like 100,000 IoT devices and they're all polling a data pool couple of times a minute, right? Like that's a couple of like million transactions every minute, right? When you think about traditional blockchains that can do 700-800 transactions per second, the math just doesn't add up. Even in best case scenarios like Solana, where you've got, let's say, 70,000 TPS at the best of times, assuming the network doesn't get DDoS, but that's a conversation for another time. Like even then, you still don't have enough throughput to be able to make it happen. So, as far as I understood, if I had to explain my understanding of what you guys do and what you just said, it would be a platform which acts as a staging environment to be able to distribute transactions on different mainnets at the right time, while also retaining some form of decentralized copy at a different level. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, let me give like a very simple example, right? So say if you want to start like a drive to earn type of project, like a demo. Basically, you have a device, put into people's car. When they drive around, your device is actually collecting all the data, velocity, GPS, even RPM, whatever data the car can produce, right? Send it over back to prove you're traveling from A to B, so to earn some token. So this is like a project. It's a real project. It's called demo. So how do you do this? Of course, you can build like all the layers ground up from hardware, firmware, blockchain, smart contract, middleware, mobile application, web application, so on and so forth, right? So this is a very big tech stack. So think about, very few teams can actually do like a big stack like this. Helium is one of such an excellent team, right? So they can do a big tech stack, but not everybody. So if you really want deep into be, or like IoT blockchain to be a real thing to this crypto world or real world, we have to make this like a big tech stack, like a much smaller. That means like a DeFi, right? Even like a solo programmer or developer, so they can do some sort of innovation during the weekend within a few days or few hours. We want, people to achieve something like this, right? So back to the drive to earn example. So that means like if you use WebStream as like the middleware to process your data, you can first tell the WebStream how to process the car data, right? So that's step one. Step two is like you can also like deploy your token on Polygon or whatever layer one you like, IoTeX layer one as well. And third one is you just connecting your device to this middleware. It magically produces all the kind of proofs you want for your smart contract on Polygon, for example. Proof this guy is driving from A to B, so give him like 10 tokens.
Yeah.
So that's our back.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I think that's one of the sort of the unique things about Web 2 versus Web 3, right? Is that in Web 2, this idea of building your own tech stack was standard, right? It was the way to do it. But sort of since Web 3 is sort of has much more of a decentralized mindset, the idea of leveraging on third-party tech stacks is actually like it's becoming much more apparent, right? Because it generates incredible speed to market, like time to market, and time to market in this industry is absolutely everything.
Yeah, it's called composability, right? People call it composability, but it's a more tech term. But I think it basically carries the spirit of like, open it up, make it simple for everybody to participate. No matter you're like a, kind of script kid, very shallow level of tech, you can still do something, right? See like Ethereum, why Solidity is very popular compared to all the other sort of innovations in the virtual machine space is because Solidity is so simple. It's basic JavaScript. Many people can do it, even though you're just like a entry level kind of full stack engineer, you can do it.
Yes.
So that level of inclusion is very important in the crypto space.
It is. Like I think what most people forget. Like I think the choice of development language is something which many projects sort of omit. And I guess as sort of being this blockchain agnostic platform, that is sort of lends in your favor because you're sort of protocol agnostic out of the box, right? But having a sort of a smart contract language which is simple and easy to grasp is fantastic. What I think is that Solidity is one, and I'm not by nature a Solidity developer, far from it. But let's say I've had a few Solidity projects, and it's one of those things that's sort of very easy to do and very difficult to master. So it's because you're talking about, 50 to 100 lines of code, which could be responsible for a couple of $100 million. So, and this is a massive problem in this industry, right? Like, is there any way that IoTeX addresses the specific problem?
Yeah, so that's why, instead of this project doing all the hardware, middleware, blockchain, smart contract, everything, so we kind of want to abstract away the hardware and the middleware, right? Of course, they will still do the smart contract on different layer ones. That's the token part or reward part. We definitely we provide them with a WebStream SDK so they can install into the device. That enable the device to talk with our kind of middleware, decentralized middleware WebStream in a very seamless way. Then they have to do a small applet. It's basically like a smart contract put into the WebStream, basically telling it how to process the data. Do you want to do an average of like a temperature? Do you want to do some sort of like a sliding window, algorithm to compute something? So that's a part you have to tell WebStream. Then, kind of like everything starts automatically.
Exactly, and then everything else is out of scope, which is as it should be, right? As it should be. Like I think way too many projects in this industry claim, we can do this, we can do that, we can have like, without mentioning specific names, we can have like NFTs that take over the moon, and with a sort of decentralized smart contract platform, and we do NFTs as well. And I'm happy to hear in this case that you guys don't do any of that, which is great. You just focus on your core value prop, and that makes sense. And so it's a launch pad and a jump pad for IoT, for decentralized IoT based projects. That's what it is.
Yeah, but if you, of course, like our focus is deeping and IoT blockchain. But like if you look at like a bigger picture for the industry, off-chain compute is always like a very hot, like a holy grail for the entire thing, right? Because you say blockchain can only do so much. So any of the most valuable part of the computation will be done on the smart contract or Ethereum, for example. It's very expensive. But most of the computation, which we need, for a lot of like innovations, for a lot of like attempts, experiments, so that has to be happen like off-chain, right? So even if you think about those AI training sort of computation, they cannot be done on blockchain, but they can be done on off-chain, and then the model be traded like on the blockchain, right? So that's why like the WebStream is also have kind of, it's like a market fate in the off compute market as well.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the idea of decentralized storage is something that sort of many people have revered, but few really understand the true consequences of using such technology. And on top of all that, traditional compute, I think, is something which most people forget. Like, people have no idea that just because you own the NFT, it doesn't mean you own the image, right? Like what happens when someone stops paying that McCloud hosting provider? Your NFT goes boom, and you're just holding a hash at the end of it,
Yeah, that's why a lot of, so that's actually come to this data availability problem, right? That means like where you store the data. Of course, you can store on Ethereum. That's a very secure, reliable place, but it's very expensive, right? Less expensive, you can go for, like you said, S3 or cloud server. It's inexpensive, efficient, but like you don't have reliability. If someone shuts it down, it's just down. So there are a lot of options in between, actually, not that expensive, still provide some sort of reliability. So that's where this like a huge volume of data actually should go to.
Exactly, and it fundamentally lends itself to the correct principles of blockchain, right? Like, too many people are sort of have this idea that, or I guess now the idea is starting to wane, but I guess like back in my day, there was this idea that blockchain would save the world, and I still think it's one of the most revolutionary kinds of technology to ever hit the world, but it cannot do everything. It is only really good for about 10% of use cases. Everything else is much more efficient on traditional computing platforms, right? And
that's a really good point, right? So the reason we're doing those tech, very high tech, is because we want to open like a new innovation space for developers. Because we all know like crypto is kind of need a new narrative or new use case to grow, right? So DeFi has done its own job in a very perfect way. NFT has almost done its job, to be honest, right? So there are some sort of things ongoing, like a liquid staking, account abstraction, but those are like a smaller ones. But I think that's what really important is, like if we can define a technology, which we think we are. So this will open up like a lot of new kind of use cases, like we talk about at the first section of this interview. That would be like awesome. So think about, you will have a decentralized energy store network, right? So where you can, buy and sell your electricity or solar from your solar panels. So think about, you have a car network or decentralized Uber, decentralized Airbnb, right? So that actually changed people's life in a dramatic way. So that's how I want to see this crypto actually making a real impact on the world.
And that's a beautiful vision, Raullen. I'm glad that there are people out there in the world who are actually focusing on real world value, other than just the price of a token going up and down, basically. And yes, I agree with you fully. For all of those use cases which you mentioned, unless you have a high throughput platform, there is no way to high throughput platform that's on an off-chain hybrid. There's no way to be able to support. There's no other way to be able to support such use cases. So, Raullen, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And one last question, actually. If I was a developer and I wanted to sort of sign up and learn a little more about the IoTeX project, where would I go?
Yeah, so there are two websites you should go. One is IoTeX, so you can see the logo and spelling here, IoTeX.io. So that's kind of like a main website for IoTeX. And more specifically, you can do this like webstream.com, W3 B stream, STREAM.com. So this is like the middleware product we're actually launching this month. So yeah, so definitely like those are go-to places, and I'm sure like my colleagues will be there to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Raullen. We'll try and stick a link in the description, and you have a wonderful day. Take it easy.